Well, welcome back, everybody, to the G5 Beat. This is John Duncan, and I'm joined this evening by the one and only Baker Loy. Baker, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Man, doing good. Another week of ball down, and my lord, we're looking up, and season's gonna be halfway through after this week. Isn't it nuts, man?
I'm telling you, we were literally just talking about that before we started recording. Like, it's just so crazy how fast it goes. It seems like just yesterday we were previewing week 0, and here we are about to preview week 6. And you're definitely right. After this week, it's halfway over, man. But I will tell you what, too, though, it has been great to see a somewhat normal season this year compared to what we got last year. So I'm glad, we haven't had I don't think any cancellations within the G5 because of COVID. And, it's great seeing, me and you both, we've been to a bunch of games so far, seeing, full crowds in attendance. It's just been great to get back to, some sense of normalcy, and just great to see some great football. And we definitely saw it this past week for week 5. And shoot, I'll go ahead and kick it over to you, Baker, for our G5 headlines. And I know you're going to talk about those Bearcats.
And you're right about that. And first of all, just knock on wood that the train keeps rolling and
please
more issues, because you're right, man. It's been fun. We're all loving it. So, hey, keep it up. But yeah, as far as the headlines of the week, I mean, number one, we all know it's Cincinnati. I didn't think, and I believe both
me either. Yeah.
And you said last week we didn't think they would pull that off, and look at them, man. I mean, they went right into South Bend, pulled that win off, and honestly, looking around the stadium during that game, man, those Bearcat fans, they showed out too. They were there. You could see the red, a good
full effect, loud, yeah.
Absolutely. But yeah, besides that game, and by the way, let's just not forget, they have a path to the playoff. The G5 has a path to the playoff, ladies and gentlemen.
Number 5, baby. Number 5 in the AP poll.
There you go. So keep it going, though. Big win for Nevada this week, taking down Boise. And also finally another Mountain West game, Hawaii, man, upsetting Fresno State, knocking them out of the top 25.
Yeah, good win for Hawaii, but kind of sour for Haener and the Bulldogs. But in a way, I wasn't predicting Hawaii to get the upset, but I knew it was going to be a close game, because if you go back to the previous week and look at that UNLV game and, seeing them kind of struggle to, pull that one off, you kind of wondered, hey, Hawaii might be catching them, the Bulldogs limping in, and that's exactly what, happened. But give credit to Hawaii, coming back and getting that win, a good win for the Warriors.
And just saying, too, I know we talked about this in the preseason, but remember, that stadium, man, in Hawaii, it only seats 10,000 people. So that's a whole different deal when you're traveling all the way over to the islands, and then you're playing in a stadium that seats, under half of what you're used to playing in front of. Not to mention, Jake Haener, I don't know what got into him this past weekend. I mean, he threw for 4 picks, so not his best day. Still racked up some yardage and touchdowns, but 4 picks, not his best day. I'm sure he'll recover, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he will. Well, love those headlines. Let's go ahead and give our player of the week. Now, I'll go ahead and start us off. I actually don't have a player of the week, but I do have the Cincinnati defense is basically my player of the week. Just shutting down the Notre Dame Fighting the Irish. You look at the stats, only giving up 340 total yards, only 84 on the ground to Notre Dame. Just this defense is for real. You look at the secondary all game for Cincinnati. They just played man for pretty much the whole game on Notre Dame and their wide receivers, and just shut them down, man. Just kudos to that Bearcats defense. We knew the defensive line was going to be good going into the season, and they, also definitely proved it again this week. So I just wanted to give that whole entire Cincinnati defense as my G5 player of the week.
Showed up and showed out. I'm with you, man. Absolutely. For me, I'm going Logan Wright from Georgia Southern. The guy rushed 10 times. Go ahead and do the math on this. 10 times for 208 yards. That's 20.8 yards per carry. and took it to the house twice as well for 2 touchdowns. Now, I was looking at ECU's running back. The guy, he went 222 yards. I think it was on like 15 carries and 2 touchdowns. But I said, you know what? Logan Wright, 20.8 yards per average. He had 5 less carries. It was like 14 less yards. I'm going to go with that guy, man. Like, what a day. But honestly, both of those guys really balled out this weekend. So kudos to you guys.
Definitely. And real quick, too, Baker, we don't have the ECU UCF game on our docket for week 6, but you and I were talking again, before we started recording, that UCF, hey, you better watch out. You just lost a close one to Navy. ECU is rolling in hot right now, coming off the big win against Tulane. And if ECU can beat UCF, watch out, man. Those Pirates, I mean, they're for real, man.
Yeah, man. Mike Houston's got them rolling, so I'm with you. They got a chance this week. And also, one other thing, not to be overshadowed too. I talked about Logan Wright a second ago. Man, Georgia Southern, after all the turmoil that they went through last week, coming out and putting the smackdown on Arkansas State, what a win for them. So we'll see if they can keep it going.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, for sure. Well, let's go ahead and recap. Just talk a little bit about the games that we previewed last week, and let's just go ahead and start off with that Cincinnati dominated win, 24-13 over Notre Dame. Unfortunately, like you just mentioned earlier, did not think that they would be able to go into South Bend and pull it out, but they did. And jumping out to a 17-0 lead, especially early on in that game, I believe Notre Dame's first drive, the opening drive on offense for Notre Dame, they drove it down the field on the Cincinnati defense, and I'm thinking like, oh crap, here we go. Like, they're Notre Dame's about to score right off the bat and put the Bearcats away, but the Bearcats were able to get a key turnover right there, and they just took control of that ball game, like I just mentioned, going up 17-0, and kind of let off the gas a little bit, but they were able to get a fourth quarter touchdown to finally pull away from the Irish. But like Baker just mentioned earlier, guys, I'm knocking on wood right now, but we might have a legit shot at getting a G5 team into the playoffs this year. It's just the AP poll, but Cincinnati is ranked number 5, which I believe is the highest ever for a G5 in the AP poll. Houston fans, if you're listening, I don't think you guys got to 5 a few years ago when you upset Oklahoma. But anyway, I mean, this is a legit opportunity for a G5 team to get into the playoff this year now.
No, I'm with you, man. Another one that comes to mind, too, that I know got pretty high up there. Yeah, I mean, he's throwing it back a little, but South Florida, I remember they had
right.
a big year or two, and I want to say they got up into the top 10, possibly top 5. Lord, it's probably been 15 years ago now, but yeah, no, listen, man, crazy stuff there. And honestly, it wasn't the prettiest game in terms of offense for Cincinnati, but their defense, man, like you said, locking them down, especially that first half, going up 17-0 in Notre Dame Stadium there, huge.
Definitely. Next game, I want to recap was, Baker hit on a little bit earlier, Nevada going into Boise State and getting the upset 41-31 over the Broncos. For those that didn't know, the Wolfpack actually had a 6-game losing streak against Boise State. And also, this was the first win for Nevada at Boise since 1997. So a lot of things, were going for Boise in their favor. And God, I should have mentioned last week when we previewed this game, but saw they were wearing those old school, the orange helmets with the state logo of Idaho with the Bronco over it. Like, I love that helmet design. With the all orange, wearing it on that blue field. But Nevada just came in. Carson Strong looked great and just able to pull out the W. And things are kind of concerning for Boise State. And, we'll hit on Boise a little bit more later because we have another Boise State game that we're previewing for this week. But this is actually the first back-to-back home games that Boise has lost since 2015. So not looking great for Boise. But Baker, any impression? I know you love Nevada, and I think you picked Nevada to win this game. So kudos to you, man.
Yeah, I'm all on the Wolfpack train, man. But no, listen. I mean, I said it last week, and I'll say it again. It's just Boise's faced a lot of good teams right now, and I mean they could be wearing down at this point. And quite frankly, just looking at what they did offensively, not a bad game. And I mean it's hard to hold Nevada's offense, but 5 fumbles for the Broncos there. That's tough to overcome. So
yeah, no doubt. Well, a third game, the Liberty Flames travel down to Birmingham, Alabama to take on my UAB Blazers to open up Protective Stadium. And unfortunately, Liberty, they were not good guest in Protective Stadium. Unfortunately, UAB did lose, but hell of a game to Malik Willis. Just the guy's as good as advertised. I had watched a lot of film on Liberty from this year and last year and knew Malik Willis was going to be good, but I just knew that or thought that UAB was going to be able to contain him somewhat. I knew he was still going to get some explosive plays, but man, I'm telling you that dude is just, he's on another level. And I know, in our preview episode last week for the game, I said that we were going to need Chris Moll to spy on Malik Willis. Unfortunately, Chris Moll did not play against Liberty. Hopefully we can get Chris Moll back this week for FAU. I'm not 100% sure on that, though. But kudos to Liberty and Hugh Freeze and Malik Willis getting the win in Birmingham 36-12. And, guys, it was not even that close. UAB scored just a late touchdown in the fourth to make it somewhat closer. But it's crazy, Baker. It was a 3-3 game at the half, and then second half, UAB looked tired and just lack of depth on the defensive side of the ball due to injuries. Not to make excuses. I'm not making any excuses. Liberty deserved to win that ball game the way Malik Willis played. So just all the kudos in the world to the Liberty Flames and ruining our party.
Man, I mean, the thing is, I mean this in the nicest way, but it's not an excuse if it's a reality. So, yeah. I mean, I'm with you. You're only speaking about what happened. But the thing is, I mean, great first half, 3-3, a defensive struggle. And, I mean, it could have kept going. But I think, like you said, depth just kind of got to him. Malik Willis he's an outstanding ball player. So it's hard to hold him down for an entire game. And, I mean, he just did what he does. Like, that's all you can say at this point. And it's nothing to hang your hat on if you're UAB. You're still a good team, and you got a beautiful new stadium. So, hey, for all you Blazer fans, keep coming out and showing out and expect UAB to get it rolling here.
Definitely. Well, we had one more game that we touched on last week that we want to recap, and that was those Louisiana Raging Cajuns and South Alabama Jaguars. Raging Cajuns pull out a 20-18 win in Mobile at the Jaguars. And going back to last week, I thought there might have been a chance that South Alabama could pull the upset and keep it close. Now, early on, when Louisiana pulled out to a 20-0 lead, I'm dead wrong about this game. But, hey, credit to South Alabama fighting back, pulling within 2, missed the extra point. I really probably could have sent it to overtime. But I don't know, just kudos to the Jaguars for fighting and making it, a close game and just having the chance to pull out the upset, and I do think that the South Alabama team is going in the right direction, and we talked a little bit last week about how, South Alabama might not be battle tested for this game. But hey, kudos to the Jaguars, man. They fought hard and nearly almost pulled off the upset of the Raging Cajuns.
Yeah, honestly, what a game by South coming back. I mean, look, a start by Louisiana for sure, and went up early, but everyone counted South out, and they said, no way, we're gonna, we're in this and we've got this. And sure enough, they came storming back, and it makes you think. There's two realities to this. Is it South is just that good, or is it Louisiana is struggling right now? I don't know. Still hard to say. But to me, I expected South to definitely compete in that. And it definitely confirmed that we need to pay attention to South Alabama. There's no doubt about it. So, until someone proves otherwise, South Alabama and Louisiana should be on your radar. So, yeah, fun ball game to watch there.
Agreed. And real quick, Levi Lewis for Louisiana, 9 of 20 throwing it for just 49 yards, man. Just kind of concerning, to be honest.
Well, one thing I learned today, too, just real quick, too. So I already knew one of their starting offensive linemen is out for the season, but apparently they have two other offensive linemen that are in kind of their rotation that are out for the season as well. So they're 3-0 linemen down right now in their rotation, which is kicking them, as you can tell, in terms of the line there. So,
yeah, well, good point. Good point. Well, let's go ahead, Baker, and start previewing our 3 games for Week 6 that we have for you guys this week. And we'll start out with those Boise State Broncos traveling down to take on the BYU Cougars. This game will be a 2:30 p.m. Central Time kickoff, nationally televised on ABC. Right now, Vegas does have BYU as a slight 5-point favorite in this game. And, kind of what I was talking about earlier, just going back to Boise, like, I don't know, man. I'm getting kind of concerned with Boise State. We know this is Andy Avalos' first season as the head coach with Boise, but I don't know, Baker. Do you agree with me that we probably are you getting concerned about this Boise State team? Like, because you look at every game that they've played so far this season, they've led in that ball game. You go to, but you also, you look at the Oklahoma State game, you look at the Nevada game, you look at the UCF game. They blew leads in all 3 of those games. And I know you hit on the fumbles earlier, or the turnover issues with Boise. Bachmeier, we don't really know his status for this game. Well, granted, I guess on the BYU side, we don't even know who's going to play quarterback for BYU because they lost both of their quarterbacks in the Utah State game this past Friday night. So I don't really know as of now who they're planning on rolling out. Maybe the third string guy that came in and took over against Utah State. But I don't know, man. I know BYU isn't a G5 team, but if you guys go back and listen to our conference preview episodes we did during the summer before the season started, we knew a couple G5 teams were going to play BYU, and I wasn't concerned about BYU. Even talking about Boise State, I wasn't concerned because with BYU, they lost Zach Wilson. I'm pretty sure they lost all their starting offensive linemen from last year. They just lost so many people, but yet here they are undefeated. And I mean, ranked. What are they ranked in the AP poll? 13. Oh no, 10. So they're a top 10 team. So I don't know. Do you have the same concerns with Boise right now, Baker?
Yeah, I do. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, I think Boise's kind of fading just from the standpoint of, again, I mean, they've played some really tough teams every single game up to this point, and they've had, some battles. And it's hard to sustain that level of play, especially at the beginning of the season. And that may be why you talk about them like getting up and falling, later on in the game. Well, that may be why, because you got the energy, but you run out of it. I mean, your bodies are torn down. They could use a bye week sometime soon. I don't know really when their bye week is. But in terms of BYU, I mean, think about it like this with those guys. Like, they're almost like a military academy, in the sense that they've got their guys that, I don't know, go on the mission and go on their mission and come back. And, they lose guys, throw guys in there all the time. And they've got a proven system, obviously, because every year they're there, they win. So, I mean, while we sat there and expected them to possibly have a down year based upon them losing guys, they're one of those teams that are kind of a question mark. You don't really know what you're going to get. And lo and behold, look at them. So, hey, but it'll be a fun potential future Big 12 preview of a game here because BYU's in there and they talk about Boise possibly going. Just looking, kind of breaking down the teams real quick. I'd say Boise, they've got a pretty good pass defense, but their ground game, it's not been good. And BYU, when you look at their defensive strengths, I'd say they're kind of average against the pass and great against the rush. So when you think about the fact that they are good against the rush, and that's kind of what Boise prides their self on this year at this point, which is funny because they were supposed to be like kind of air raid and they haven't great through the air. I feel like that kind of gives BYU an advantage on defense. And I mean, let's be honest, man, BYU can freaking run the rock. So
they can.
I see them taking over Boise and just relying on that ground game pretty heavily. And I mean, you do a physical run game like that wears on a team that's gone through what Boise has gone through this year. And especially, like you said, with BYU having some quarterback issues, I would expect them to just rely on the run game.
Yeah, and speaking of that run game, you know, Tyler Algier for BYU. I mean, this guy already has almost 600 rushing yards for the season, and that's just through 5 games. This past game at Utah State, he totaled it 22 times for 218 yards and 3 touchdowns. So, I mean, this guy's good. And I definitely expect him to get going early on, especially with the quarterback injuries that BYU has currently. I think they feed Algier early on and just feed him, you know, I think he'll get more than 22 this game. I think he'll probably get 25 to 30 carries and just kind of expect them to kind of put Boise away early. And I hate to see that, you know, because you pull for the G5 team in Boise, but I don't know, man. I just see Boise going in the wrong direction right now. They're 2-3, probably going to go 2-4 after this game. So I do like BYU in this game as well, and I do like BYU to cover that 5-point spread for sure.
Yeah, but Boise, I will say, I know I've been pretty critical of them. They are not as bad as their record indicates. Like I said, it's down to who they've played at this point. So
definitely, I mean, it's and that's exactly what you said earlier. I mean, they chose to schedule, you know, hard games out in the non-conference. Well, other than UTEP, but hey, shout out to UTEP, man. Got my Sunday morning headline from last week, 4-1. So those Miners, hey, looking like a better team than normal. But hey, yeah, but we all know Boise always schedules tough games in the non-conference. You know, they've always done that. But I am a little concerned with the Broncos right now. But definitely expect BYU to get the win this Saturday against Boise State. But again, that game is at 2:30 p.m. Central Time on ABC. So national exposure for Boise. So hey, maybe they'll prove us both wrong and come out on the victory side. But we'll go ahead and move into our next game, which is featuring a couple Mountain West teams. Wyoming travels from Laramie down to take on the Air Force Falcons. This game will be a 6 p.m. Central Time kickoff on CBS Sports Network. Right now, it looks like Vegas does have the Air Force Falcons as a 4-point favorite in this ball game. Now, what concerns me for Wyoming, you know, Wyoming's hell of a season, you know, 4-0 right now, undefeated. What concerns me is their rush defense. And in particular, you know, I remember watching the Northern Illinois game that they had a few weeks ago. Well, and also their last game struggling against a not good at all UConn team. But going back to the Northern Illinois game, I mean, they let the Northern Illinois running back carry the ball for almost 200 yards, and he had a couple touchdowns. I mean, just giving up a lot of rushing yards. And we all know what Air Force likes to do on the offensive side of the ball with that rushing attack that they have with, with Roberts and, of course, with Daniels at quarterback. I mean, I don't know, man. I expect Air Force to get the win outright, but I expect this to be kind of a wake-up call for all Wyoming because, you know, Wyoming's been kind of skating by, you know, barely beating UConn. They actually beat a really good Ball State team, but barely beating Northern Illinois, barely escaping FCS opponent Montana State, 19-16. So I don't know. I've been watching a lot of Air Force film, in particular watching their game against FAU, and I was just very impressed with everything that I saw out of Air Force getting that 31-7 win over FAU. Because if folks don't know, UAB plays FAU this week, so I'm diving in a lot on FAU as well. But definitely was able to watch that whole game and just just a dominating effort for Air Force. And, and they just dominated this past week, beating a better New Mexico team than in the past, 38-10, and that was at New Mexico. So, Baker, what do you see in this ballgame? But I definitely like Air Force big in this game, definitely covering that 5-point spread.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it comes down to exactly what you said. That Air Force rushing attack is out of this world. I mean, the only word I can use to describe them is electric. I mean, I just pulled it up just to have it in front of me. Statistically, they're averaging 367 rushing yards per game right now. Ooh. I would imagine that's number one in the country. If not, it's definitely in the top few there. So, I mean, what are you going to do to a team that's averaging that much, 367 yards rushing a game when your run defense is average to below average as Wyoming is? I mean, you're not going to be able to slow that down. And, yeah, you can try all you want to keep up. And Wyoming is a decent team. They've been decent this year, obviously. But I just don't see them hanging in with Air Force. Air Force is going to run them out of the stadium, if you ask me. And I mean, I hate to call it like that, but I'm expecting a big win for Air Force in that game.
Yeah. So we see it the same way. Good. I mean, it is what it is sometimes. I mean, you just see it, you watch Wyoming, and we're not saying that Wyoming's a bad team. I mean, they're 4-0 for a reason. I mean, they've got 4 victories. Granted, 3 of those 4 were barely wins, but it was a good dominating performance over Ball State in that 45-12 victory a few weeks ago. But yeah, I just think Air Force is more battle tested. Like I said, I watched the whole replay of the FAU Air Force game, and FAU, for those that don't know, is at the top of Conference USA, especially in the East. It's going to be, Marshall lost to Middle Tennessee this past week, so it's probably going to be FAU out of the East representing the East in the Conference USA Championship. So just dominating FAU really that whole game. So very impressed with what I see out of the Falcons, and definitely agree that they're probably going to run the Cowboys back to Laramie from Colorado.
And don't get me wrong, too, in that game, like looking at the records, like that's kind of a sexy matchup there. Looking at the records, it's not like it's expected to be a blowout when you look at those 2 records, but that honestly just speaks to the depth of the Mountain West this year. The Mountain West is having a huge year so far to be just 5-6 weeks into the season. So kudos to them, and hope they keep it up.
And real quick, while we're on that topic, Baker, we talked a little bit before we started recording the episode, but we were talking that as of right now, the Mountain West is the best G5 conference right now. I mean, maybe the Sun Belt can argue a little bit, with having Coastal up there. But with Louisiana kind of struggling, App's still kind of up there too. But I don't know. I think you do got to give it to the Mountain West as of right now going into week 6.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a Sun Belt guy through and through, but I don't think that we can argue with that right now. I think the Mountain West has it. I mean, they're playing, out of this world, and they've got multiple teams that are, either ranked or up there at this point, and the Sun Belt dropped back. App's receiving votes, but Coastal's the only one that's in there at this point. Louisiana's fallen off. So, yeah, no argument from me saying that the Sun Belt's in it. I mean, Mountain West, keep rolling,
Right. Man, I wish App would have beat Miami. Oh.
Yeah, well.
I didn't mean to open up an old wound, I didn't mean to, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Hey, every year we have a few teams have some of those games like that, but that's what you face. You gotta capitalize on opportunities. So
yeah, you're right about that. Well, we have one more game to preview for you guys. We got 3 games this week, and this last game was our G5 Beat Game of the Week, chosen by you guys on our Twitter account on the Twitter poll. Thanks so much for everybody that did, place your vote. And I know there's a lot of people listening too that's thinking that we don't. I guess we ended up talking about UAB in this episode, but we're not previewing a UAB game in this week's episode. But yeah, shout out to you guys voting on this poll. And if you're not following us on Twitter, definitely give us a follow at twitter.com/the G5Beat, where you can find us every week. We have a Twitter poll where you guys get to help us pick our last game to preview for the next week. But this game, nonetheless, is a Conference USA game as the UTSA Roadrunners travel down to Bowling Green, Kentucky to take on the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. This game will be a 6 p.m. Central Time kickoff and will be televised on Stadium. Now, right now, and look, let me double check. Oh, okay, wow. So it's actually moved up. So right now, Western Kentucky is a 3.5 point favorite. Yeah, before we recorded, it was at 3, but now it's at 3.5. Now, I texted my buddy Jared. He does a great job on Underdog Dynasty and also on the Alamo Dome Audible, which is a UTSA podcast. Guys, if you're listening to us right now and not listening to the Alamo Dome Audible and you're a UTSA fan, what the hell are you doing? Go ahead and check them out right now. Jared and Adrian do a hell of a job covering UTSA. But I texted him because that line was really fishy when it came out, or I thought it was, because you got Jeff Traylor and the Roadrunners coming in at 5-0, 1-0 in Conference USA, going to a 1-3 team, Western Kentucky. And I texted him. I was like, "Is there something that I'm missing? Like, is Sincere McCormick hurt or something like that? Is there an injury?" But I don't know, man. You sit back and look. Nobody to our knowledge is hurt. Sincere McCormick is okay, but the line is actually about right, Baker. And you look at Western Kentucky 1-3, but look at their losses, man. A close loss to Indiana. I know Western Kentucky fans listening now are just kicking their boots saying, why did they punt it on 4th and 1 or 4th? I can't remember if it's 4th and 1 or 4th and 2 in the fourth quarter. Anyway, they punted and allowed Indiana to have one final drive. And of course, they ran out the clock. But also at Army, just barely losing 38-35. Just this past week, going to East Lansing, Michigan State, losing 48-31. Still a respectable score at a Power 5 team. This team is good. We joked around in our Conference USA preview before the season about how this is just the Houston Baptist, the 2.0 team, whatever, that, since they took everybody to Western Kentucky. But Zappe, man, I mean, he just won Conference USA Offensive Player of the Week for, I believe, the second or third time. I mean, the Hilltoppers are for real. And you kind of look at the UTSA secondary, not bad, but not good. So the line's kind of right, man. And I don't know, Baker, but I think the Hilltoppers might get this one. And I know we've got a lot of UTSA, fans listening, but this is a very, very dangerous spot for UTSA going into Bowling Green. Just ask, from a UAB fan's perspective, a few years ago, we were coming in really hot, favored against Western Kentucky. And that was Helton's first year, I believe. Yeah. And ended up taking the L there. That's a tough place to play down there. So I don't know, man, but I like WKU in this one. And I hate to say that because, I do like UTSA a lot with Sincere McCormick, but I just think Zappe might light him up this week. Baker, what are your thoughts on this game?
Man, first and foremost, I just got to throw shade at this, man. The freaking Conference USA TV deal. Come on, this game does not need to be on Stadium. This game needs
what do you mean? You got to be in the stadium to watch it.
Yeah, I know, but it's like I'm with you, man. This is a good game. Don't look at Western Kentucky's record and say, oh man, they're 1-3 or whatever it is, and it's going to be a blowout city there. UTSA is 5-0, and they're going to take them. I don't think that's the case, man. Western Kentucky has played some good ball clubs, and their offense is out of this world. Like, they are elite. I mean,
yes.
Look at how good they have been in terms of their pass game. Now, yeah, their running game hasn't been the best, but, dude, they're freaking setting marks, tossing the rock around. Bailey Zappe is absolutely tearing it up this year. And I know that UTSA has a good defense. But like you said, their pass defense could be better, no doubt about it. Hey, what's Bailey Zappe going to do to him if he gets some time back there? I don't know. I mean, I could see him tossing it around and making some things happen. And like you mentioned, it's a home game, so you get the crowd into it. I mean, you never know what's going to happen, right? And you look at UTSA. It's interesting. Their ground attack. It's been decent this year, but not what I would expect with Sincere McCormick. I would think they could do a little more, to be honest. But the good news for them is Western's run defense has not been great. So I think they're definitely going to pound the rock. You're going to have two alternate sides of the universe in this game offensively. You're going to have Western just tossing it all over the barn, and you're going to have UTSA just with a heavy, heavy dosage of Sincere McCormick. And I think both, the pass game from Western as well as the run game from UTSA will probably excel. And honestly, I expect to see a potential, I don't want to say it necessarily, but potential shootout. I think it'll be at least in the 30s or something there, just because of, pairing those up. The defenses aren't necessarily the best against the strengths of each team there. So, but for me, brother, I'm with you. I'm just going to go ahead and expose this, and you can keep chatting on it if you want. But my projected headline for Sunday morning, Hilltoppers top road runners and give them their first loss of the season. So I'm all in on that as well. I think it's a big win, and they're due, man. The Toppers are really due for a win at this point over a good team. They've shown they can hang.
Yeah, definitely. Real quick, too, just going back and looking at the last few games, UTSA on the defensive side of the ball through the air. You look at UNLV just this past week. I mean, they gave up over 300 yards. And now, granted, they did get 2 picks, so it was good to see them get some turnovers. But, I mean, this is a UNLV team that's, 0-5 now, so kind of struggling with a not too good team. But even before that, going back to the Memphis game, and we all know how great Hennigan is, gave up over 300, almost 330 yards to him through the air. So they're going to, if they give up more than 350 yards through the air to Zappy, I mean, it's not going to be pretty for UTSA. But one thing I do want our listeners to pay attention to this Saturday night while watching this game is the UTSA defensive line against the Western Kentucky offensive line, because we all know how great that defensive line is for the UTSA Roadrunners. If they can get pressure, which they can, and they've shown they can this year, if they can get pressure and get in the backfield quickly to make Zappy hurry up and make some quick reads and maybe force him into some bad balls, UTSA can win this game. But what the opposite of that is, if they can't get much pressure on Zappy and he just sits back there and has all the time in the world, he's going to pick that secondary apart all night long. So that's definitely where fans need to turn their attention towards for this game. But yeah, I'm expecting a good Conference USA game. And, this is Western Kentucky's first conference game of the year. And this, like I mentioned earlier, this is UTSA's second conference game of the year. So, I mean, we can even see a rematch in the Conference USA Championship, too, if, WKU maybe gets FAU to slip up a couple times or gets Marshall to slip up again. I still can't believe Marshall lost to Middle Tennessee. I mean, that's a whole nother episode, I guess. But it's going to be a hell of a game in Conference USA. Baker, you're not throwing shade. Conference USA fans, we know how bad the TV deal is. I still, on the regular, because this week's UAB FAU game is going to be on Stadium. And I still get people texting me, calling me, what is Stadium? Like, where can I find this? Like, it's just so stupid. And I hate that Conference USA leadership, Gina McLeod did that. Which is another reason why I want out of Conference USA. But I just hope that Conference USA can get a different TV deal coming up this next go around. And I believe the deal runs up next year, out of the 2022 season, I believe. So just one more season, guys. So hang in there, Conference USA fans.
Hey, quick, too, can you give the listeners a quick tutorial on where to find the game, where to go to the stadium?
Of course, man. Yeah, so if you have a Fire Stick, or if you have an Apple device, or if you just, an iPhone, Android, whatever, if you have an iPhone, go to the App Store and download the Stadium app, and you can actually just watch it on there. But if you got a Fire Stick, just go to the App Store, download the Stadium app, or same with Android, go to Google or wherever those Android people download their stuff at. Just go download the Stadium app and you can watch it there.
Google Play Store.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, Baker's an Android user. Yeah, I hate seeing that green text every week. But yeah, guys, yeah, seriously, just go download the Stadium app and you'll be able to watch that game. And also too, if you have like a Google Chromecast, you can cast it to your TV or whatnot. But definitely just download that Stadium app and watch that game with us Saturday night. And also, don't forget about. Yeah. Oh, yes, it is free. Yes. Yeah, I should have mentioned that earlier. Yeah, you don't have to pay a subscription or anything. It is free. So yeah, download that app and watch it with us. And also, hey, get that second TV up like I'm going to do and put it on CBS Sports Network and tune into that Wyoming Air Force game. That's going to be a hell of a game in the Mountain West, as we just mentioned earlier. But Baker, well, you just gave your Sunday morning headline, so I will go ahead and give my Sunday morning headline, and this is going to shock some people, but I think the Mean Green pull out of Columbia, Missouri with the win this Saturday. Missouri is just not looking good at all. Eli Drinkwitz, things just aren't going his way. They've got kind of a banged up defense. I think North Texas finally gets it right. They showed some improvement against Louisiana Tech a couple weeks ago on the offensive side of the ball, especially late in that game. So I like them to come into Columbia, Missouri and pull off the upset. And I know that sounds crazy the way North Texas has played this year so far, but I really do think that North Texas can go to Columbia and get a win against another SEC team. They did it a couple years ago against Arkansas, so why not? And Seth Luttrell definitely needs this win because, buddy, his seat is hot right now. So they need a good showing in Columbia.
And Mizzou fired their defensive line coach this past week after the game. And
that's right.
I mean, there's definitely been some chatter about Steve Wilkes, their defensive coordinator, possibly getting the axe. So they're looking to hold up their end of the bargain and keep their job. So they're definitely going to come out strong. But I mean, hey, look, if you can do it, North Texas, you might cause Mizzou to fall into a frenzy there. So
definitely. But yeah, Tennessee made them look real bad this past week. But also, I wanted to give – I couldn't do it 2 weeks in a row. But, guys, pay attention to the UTEP Miners. They are 4-1 now. My headline last week was that they were going to be 4-1 after beating ODU, and they did just that. And, guys, they've got a winnable game again this week. They go to Hattiesburg to take on the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. Will Hall, struggling Southern Miss team, just took a hard loss to Rice and Houston this past week. But, guys – if UTEP can get this win Saturday in Hattiesburg and go to 5-1, El Paso is going to be going crazy. So definitely look out for that. Oh, and speaking of that, let's go ahead and tell our listeners what we're definitely previewing for Week 7 next week. We've got 2 games on the docket that we're definitely previewing. We're definitely previewing App State, Louisiana, which is a Tuesday night game. So, guys, we normally, drop these Tuesday early in the morning. So make sure that you're subscribed to us on a podcast platform, whether that be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, because you're going to want to listen to that episode Tuesday morning before that Tuesday night matchup between the Sun Belt matchup between App and Louisiana. That's going to be a great matchup. The second game is going to be UCF and Cincinnati. We still got to see what UCF does this week, coming off the L to Navy this past week in Annapolis. But, I mean, there's a chance they lose to ECU. I don't think they will, but definitely watch that game this week. But we definitely do want to preview UCF Cincinnati because that is going to be a big game in the American Conference. But we've got 4 games that we want you guys to help choose one to add to that 2 games to help us give a third game to preview for next week. Those 4 games are going to be UTEP and Louisiana Tech, Wyoming, Fresno State, San Diego State, San Jose State, and Georgia Southern and South Alabama. So make sure you're following us on Twitter at twitter.com/the-G5beat. And Sunday morning, we'll have that poll up, and it will only be up for 24 hours. So make sure that you cast your vote and tell a friend to also cast their vote. And tell your friend or two to give us a listen. And, let us know what we're doing good. Let us know what we're not doing good on the show, what you want to see more of, what you want to see less of. But just thank you guys. We're seeing the numbers grow on Twitter for our followers. We just want to thank you so much week in and week out, for casting your vote on those Twitter polls. And also, you guys that are just now recently following us, thank you for following us and giving us a listen today too as well. But Baker, did I miss anything else before we wrap it up?
Man, I got two things to say real quick. I'll just say this. UTEP's trying to play their way out of that stadium contract. They're trying to end up in the Mountain West.
Mountain West.
Yeah. So I'm with you there. And one more thing, too, like you mentioned, the fans, thank you guys for tuning in. And, let your friends know if you like us. Hey, let us know what you want to hear about on a weekly basis. We're always interested in feedback. So we love interacting with you guys. And again, keep it up. And thanks for the listens.
Definitely. Well, all right, guys, we'll be back next week to recap what happens in week 6 and get you ready for week 7. But as always, enjoy watching football. We'll see you next week.